Hello and welcome to Redeeming Thunder. My name is Erica and I'm here to give you a very serious prophetic word. Okay? The Most High does not play with you. And these are appointed times now of judgment and of deliverance. Hallelujah. Allah Shema. This word was given to me on 11/17/2025 and this is chapter 63 part 3. And this is of the Revamp Productions of the Ordained Spouse series. And this is also in regards to the prodigal spouse who does not return. So if you are one that has been waiting, standing for your ordained spouse and or prodigal spouse to return, just know that if your prodigal spouse is not returning, it's because then Yahuah has a new plan and he has an ordained spouse for you. Okay? But the Most High is saying, go to the left and go to the right. And that means there's judgment being handed when he says the left hand. And then there is blessings, barakas being given when he says the right. Okay? And authority given. So you need to listen. Because something's going to happen to some of your loved ones. And this is a difficult word to give. Okay? But it is needed. And you rather should know rather than being in the unknown. Okay? The Most High says in this hour, Ayin Ya Solo Sili Salah, 7 times. And which means divine alignment, the eye of Yahuah, the hand of Yahuah. And he says, you are mine. And it means build a highway with a song to lift up. The word S-A-L-A-L means to lift up, cast up, exalt, or build a highway. He is building you a new highway, a new road for your life. And he is looking after his covenant people. It also means to exalt, to extol, or praise, lifting up a song or praising Yahuah the Most High. In this hour, this is how you get through difficult times. And this is how you win your battles. You lift up songs of praise and worship. Okay? This is how you fight in this hour. This is how you get through very difficult times. The Most High is referencing some of these prodigals' spouses as Nebuchadnezzar, comparing him to a Nebuchadnezzar. I heard in the sub-days, war on man. And then I hear, after this chapter, he is no more. There is a conclusion happening. And then I hear in the sub-days. Sub-days means like when I get put into a sleep for 1 or 2 seconds and something is downloaded internally in me while I'm sleeping for those 2 seconds and or in my ear. And I hear the plague. So someone who is your ordained spouse is going to be single. Why? Because it's divine alignment of the Most High. He's causing the counterfeits to not commingle greatly with your ordained spouse anymore because they need to be with you. So he's causing these relationships that you may have had to not work out. Communication is just stifled. There's no, if you guys have children, there's no co-parenting. You have different parenting styles all of a sudden. And it's just not going good. And he's doing it on purpose. He lifted the grace off of it and he's doing it on purpose. The Most High is doing it on purpose. Because he needs you with another. And because what Yahuah is saying about you is, you are mine. And what your future ordained spouse is saying about you is, you are mine. They want you that bad. Okay? And he's saying to suspend in the balance, to send someone for someone. And then I hear in the sub days, Maverick is the name. Maverick, the name Maverick means independent, unconventional, and nonconformist individual who thinks or acts differently from others. This person often refuses to follow group customs and may pursue rebellious or disruptive ideas that set them apart from their peers. Independent thinker, a maverick has their own unique perspective and is not afraid to challenge established opinions or norms. Unconventional, they do not go along with the crowd and often refuse to follow the rules or customs of a group. A lone wolf. Okay, so it can be a positive or negative depending on the context point of view. Being a maverick can be seen as a positive trait like being an innovative trailblazer, or a negative one like being seen as a difficult rebel. So what do you say? Maverick is the name. Okay. And then he says, fine eyes because of Moed looking after me. So fine eyes because appointed times looking after me. So someone is looking at you with twinkly eyes, sparkly eyes. Someone is looking after you. Someone is paying attention to your body language, to what you say, to what you don't say, to what you say, but it could sound like you are stuffing something. Someone's really paying attention because they're have incredible communication skills and high emotional intelligence. That's why. And then their eyes are really sparkly because they adore you. Of course they adore you if they're paying that much attention to you, right? Okay, so, and then all of a sudden in the sub days I hear, get me the left. And in that moment I'm like, oh my gosh, the left side is divine judgment. And my heart feels heavy, very heavy. And I hear the sub days, get to my left. I will torture your son now. Okay, so when the Most High speaks to you about your son, it doesn't mean your son like your biological offspring son. He's talking about your son. If he says that phrase, he means probably someone that's an adult, probably a prodigal spouse. Okay? That probably someone that's rebellious, and it could even be your son, but it could be it could also be someone that is a friend, but he's calling him your son because he's not calling him his. Do you understand this? He calls his children when they really are his, and they really behave, and they honor and worship him, and follow his commandments. He doesn't consider everybody his child. So then the way he says it, it's almost like a diss, and he says, your son. But in a way, had you been needing to get into that mother role with the prodigal, so then it is kind of like a older son, man-child, right? So that is why he's saying it in that way, because he's like, I'm not claiming him mine, which is very sad and actually an emergency. So That's not good to receive it in that way, but the Most High doesn't like pamper around feelings. He's not going to tell you something just because it might hurt your feelings. He's just going to say it. And now you're getting worried. Did I not pray enough for the individual? Did you not fast enough? Did you not feel, show? And part of you could have gone into a masculine role and in a way be of service galore, doing all of their chores and all of the caregiving of the children, all of the errands, and all of the, to not, to uplift the burden, to help him, thinking that if you just do it all, he wouldn't be as grouchy all the time, and he would be more amicable and grateful, because you helped him all the more, and because you lifted the burden off of his shoulders, that he will turn to the Father. But guess what? That didn't occur. And instead, it just puts you in your resentful masculine role of overworked. And so what you need to do is get back onto your chair, which is your feminine receiving role, okay? And you're going to breathe. You're going to set standards. You're going to stay in your lane. You're going to do your self-care galore. Okay? A lot of self-care. And part of this self-care is entering into your rest, which we've spoken about in the earlier chapter 50, 54, and etc. And you're entering into your rest and entering into the glory cloud. Okay? And that's why I encourage you to do the fasting and the praying. Because you will break some yokes that will help us assist you into entering into that phase. And it will feel all the more natural. And you'll have hunger for the divine presence of the Most High. Okay? So then, as I continue to be in the secret place, I hear sub days. Or excuse me, not in the sub days, just a prophetic word. Sana means, and you're wondering, we let me backtrack. We're wondering, maybe you didn't do enough. And the Most High is saying, oh, this is all me now. You did plenty. Okay? And he is saying, the reason is because Ama Sana. And he says, you are a maidservant. You are a handmaid. Kind of like Ruth and Boaz's story. And he says, in this year. The word also means marriageable age. And the Sana means in this revolution of time, in this year. And then he says Zilpah, which means 3. He's explaining why, okay? He's explaining why. Why there has to be a transition now. And if you are with a counterfeit and or a prodigal spouse, why there has to be a prodigal spouse that does not return, why there has to be a transition now. Okay? So he's saying the word Zilpah. Zilpah was the handmaid of Leah, given to her by the father Laban, who later became Jacob's concubine. She is the mother of 2 of Jacob's sons, Gad and Asher, who became ancestor of 2 of the 12 tribes of Israel. Zilpah is significant as a key figure in the lineage of the Israelites, though the biblical narrative highlights her as a figure who has fulfilled a divine purpose despite her low social status. Okay, so ancestress of the tribes, the sons of Zilpah, Gad, and Asher are the progenitors of the 2 of the 12 tribes of Israel. Zilpah's story is part of the larger narrative of how Yahuah's promise to multiply the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was fulfilled. It is often seen as an example of Yahuah using the overlooked and the marginalized to accomplish his will. So in other words, you're wondering, well, if I was with a prodigal spouse that never was going to return, or I have been with counterfeits and I've had children with them, what was the purpose of that? It was a purpose such as Zilpah. It was to complete the promise of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of the lineage being multiplying. So in other words, the purpose has been fulfilled. You have completed the task with that individual of the amount of children you were supposed to have in that appointed time in your life, for these individuals to be born at a certain time frame for the dimensions of time to evolve at the appointed time. So the Most High used these individuals for their seed and or for the womb, for her, to bring these other individuals into the world that needed to be here. Okay? And then, because these offspring are of the royal lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he found a willing person, just like Zilpah was willing, and your counterfeit was willing, and or your prodigal spouse that doesn't return, but he was willing to have offspring with you, and he has completed the task. And so now it's reached its end. And you're like, what are you trying to say here? It sounds like the Most High just used them for their offspring. And or it just sounds like thanks for the babies, see ya. You know, I'm not trying to sound harsh, but it's just, I don't make the rules here. I'm just the messenger. Okay? This is a really hard word to give. Immensely. And I've held on to this word for quite some time, and it's just appointed times now to deliver it. Hallelujah. I'm not one to give you partial of the word. I have to give you all of it. And so you need to look forward for what's to come. Because some of you still have offspring with the future ordained spouse. Okay? Then I had some days I hear pumpkin magic, which reminds me of the Cinderella story. Okay, I don't know why he said that, but it just reminds me how, like, the carriage, you know, was made out of a pumpkin, and she was wearing that gown, and so he slipped on that shoe, you know, and when he finally found her, he slipped on the shoe and it fit perfectly, but she accidentally left a shoe, which left a clue, and it was just this whole ordeal, okay? So, like a Cinderella story, almost. Okay, so now, Maverick time. It's Maverick time. I wanted to add in a bit more details on that. Signifies an independent soul that follows an inner compass rather than external conformity. represents the courage to be authentic, to question norms, and to author one's own path with a pioneering, trailblazing spirit. It can also be seen as a force that challenges rigid institutions. Someone to be strong or a builder. He's sending you a builder that you can build with, which is really good. Okay? Okay, so this is what a spiritual encounter can lead to, a maverick change, where an individual leaves behind their formal life of comfort and power to follow a new, divinely inspired path. Okay, so this is really good. Then I hear so finally, at last, conclusion or end, forever ended. To speak forth the cause. And then it says, pray for peace. You know, so on that end, it references these scriptures. Okay, so topical lexicon of semantic nuisance conveys the idea of a limit reached, whether upward, outward, or forward in time, temporal end, or uniting the imagery of a height that touches heaven with the certainty of an appointed conclusion. The word therefore frames two complementary truths. Human power has a ceiling, and history has a terminus fixed by Yahuah. And then it gives these verses of Daniel. This is where Nebuchadnezzar's stories comes into play. Daniel 4:22 portrays the colossal tree of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Its top reached the heavens. The upward end accentuates the king's seemingly invincible, only to be humbled by Yahuah, whose rule is higher still. Daniel 6:26 places the same word in a temporal setting. His dominion endures to the end. By royal decree, the Persian king contrasts the finite span of earthly monarchs with the boundless reign of living Yahuah. Daniel 7:26 anticipates the verdict against the little horn, whose dominion will be taken away and annihilated forever. The word underscores the finality of the divine judgment. Daniel 7:28 records Daniel's own response. This is the end of the matter. The prophet closes the vision with a solemn acknowledgement that the revealed plan is complete and unalterable. And I put a side note here. I had another dream regarding ICE agents, and it hinted on another individual chiming in to find these illegal immigrants, okay, all for that plan. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that Trump's plan for immigration is good or bad. I'm saying that it painted the time frame of when this was going to happen, when the immigrant had to leave and go back to he was afraid and he was thinking of fleeing. There's an individual in the dream, and then there was another individual in the dream that said he wanted to alert the agents so that they can leave, or that the other person can be gone because he's not legally here. And I said, how come you don't call then or do it? Just simply asking. And that person says, because I'll be gone too if I alert them. So that person represents the counterfeit that knows that their time is up pretty soon. And it happens to be around the time frame of when ISIS prominent, the basically the transition of moving out immigrants from the states, okay, which is now in 2026, right? I'm recording this in March. I received this prophetic word in January. It was going on prior to this. So this paints a picture of when this is going to occur. Because then if that's how you know. That gives a clue. It's now going forward, right? Okay, so I want to elaborate a little bit more on the word Soph, which means end of the earth. Daniel 4:8. But at last Daniel came in before me, whose name was Belshazzar, according to the name of my Yahuah, of my God, in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying. So this is Nebuchadnezzar's dream, Matthew Henry Concise Commentary. The beginning and end of this chapter leads us to hope that Nebuchadnezzar was a monument of the power of divine grace and of the riches of divine mercy. After he was recovered from his madness, he told to distant places and wrote down for future ages how Yahuah had justly humbled and graciously restored him. When a sinner comes to himself, he will promote the welfare of others by making known the wondrous mercies of Yahuah. Nebuchadnezzar, before he related the divine judgment upon him for his pride, told the warnings he had in his dream or vision. So, take a break from real quick. The Nebuchadnezzar in your life, who represents Nebuchadnezzar, has had dreams, warning dreams of upcoming judgment. And some of these individuals are prodigal spouses who had the spirit of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay? They've had warnings coming to them, and it's coming to them in dreams, quite literally. And it's disturbing dreams. Okay? For instance, there's a dream. I'm going to share a dream that I'm going to hold off and share on a different video. The Most High wants me to wait. Okay, so let's continue. This is surely the sorest of all temporal judgments. Whatever outward affliction Yahuah is pleased to lay upon us, you have cause to bear it patiently and to be thankful that he continues the use of our reason. Yet if Yahuah should see fit by such means to keep a sinner from multiplying crimes or a believer from dishonoring his name, even the dreadful prevention would be far preferable to the evil conduct. So cutting the stump rather than completely pulling out the roots. Remember, the tree hit the heavens. Okay, he cut the stump. He didn't pull it out. That means there was still room for redemption, which is still showing mercy. Okay, so he is doing this because there is people suffering and he heard the cries of the oppressed. Okay? And he doesn't forget. All right, so what's going on here is the prodigal spouses and or counterfeits have been throwing grenades. They've been in their rebellion, maverick in a negative sense, and so and it's been hindering their loved ones, and so you will see the plague hit. And that would be the divine punishment. And it comes as illness. Then I heard in the subdays, then I'm going to write 1, 2, 3, which I'm not sure exactly what that means. But Daniel 7:26 says, but the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy until the end. And then Daniel 6:27 means, he delivereth and he rescueth and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. And a lot of it has to do with, it has been quite tumultuous for individuals, such as being locked in a den of lions. Okay? And Nebuchadnezzar was a king to do that. Then I hear in the subdays, I don't mind chasing 116, 116. And when I researched what the 116 means, and it's the word Edayin, which means then at that time. And it means thereupon, and it also means, it links to narrated events with immediacy. Okay? Now and that time and then. He's talking about the past of what happened. Okay? And so now, or even now, as if it continues. Okay? Daniel 3:24. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was stoned and rose up in haste and spake and said unto his counselors, did not we cast thee men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, true, O king. So he's talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they were thrown in for not wanting to bow down to that idol. And they were thrown in basically the kiln of fire. Okay, and they made it like 7 times hotter, just to be all the more treacherous and evil. A lot of you have been in the fire, and it's felt very difficult. Okay? And the Most High said, even still, maybe you have been in that. That, now, that, then, and that time, and then. Okay? So, remember the story, though. Yahuah was in the furnace with the 3 gifted, anointed individuals. Remember? So, where he sent an angel to take them out and quench the fire. So the faith is going to quench the fire in this hour. That is the key. So Yahuah sent Azariah, it's an angel, and his companions into the furnace and drove the flame of the fire from the furnace. And they walked in the midst of the flame, praising and blessing Yahuah. So you got to get in the fire right now. Okay? Because maybe some of you are still in the furnace. And you got to get in the fire to get out of that difficult time. Because your rescue is here. He never left. He's right here. Hallelujah. And so then Nebuchadnezzar heard them singing praise and was astonished. But it is probable that either the slaying of the men who executed his sentence was that which astonished Nebuchadnezzar, or rather his unexpected seeing at a distance the young men walking at liberty and apparently in comfort, even in a fiery furnace. And so there is supernatural healing coming for you as well. And there is supernatural rescue coming for you. Shalom.